All right. So let's come back to this. So we're going to look at a negative externality, but let's start with the normal situation. So we have our normal situation, which we were assuming before when we talked about supply and demand, have no externality. Then it's going to be, our situation was like this, and we have our demand. Remember, our demand is given by the marginal benefit to the consumer. Supply, our supply is given by the marginal cost to the producer. And then we have our equilibrium quantity here. So the equilibrium quantity here. And this one maximizes total. So this is what we did before. And so we follow this rule. We produce until the marginal benefit equals marginal cost. And that leads us to maximize our total surplus. Okay, so this is the situation we had before with no externality. And now we're going to bring in that we have an externality. Okay, so what this means is for the negative side, we're going to model it on the cost side. So we can think of it like being an extra cost. So what this means is there's some extra cost for society that's not being accounted for in the price of the good. Okay, that's what we mean here. So let's go to this idea. Okay, so in this one we're just gonna show our externality, and then in another one we'll start talking about how they generally solve this thing. Okay, so price and quantity, and let's just draw what we had before. So let's say this is toys. Okay, so this is our toys, and this is a private. We're going to now call this a private marginal cost demand. I'm going to call it the private marginal benefit because we'll do some of that next week. Okay, so this is what it looks like when we have no externality, but let's suppose we have one. Okay, so what is the externality? Well, the externality is that our toy factories use coal, and this causes pollution. So we get air pollution. So when we're producing this good, we cause air pollution. And let's suppose right now there's no regulation. Okay, so that's the kind of starting point. There's no regulation about this, so the factory does not get in trouble for producing this air pollution. All right, so here's what happens. You can think of it like an extra cost. So we're going to add it vertically, kind of the way we did with the tax. So we have an external, this is the externality. We have an external cost, and we can think of it as per unit. So like per toy, then you produce the toy at a certain cost, but then you also produce a dollar's worth of damage to the environment. Okay, for example. Okay, so there's more sophisticated ways to do this when people are actually doing it for the purpose of implementing this in the real world, but just to show you the idea. Okay, so now we have this new social marginal cost. Okay, and the social marginal cost includes the private plus the external. Okay, so it includes this private marginal cost, which we had here, but it also adds this external cost onto it. So who bears the external cost? Well, the external cost goes to the people living around the factory, right? And to the extent which this coal will also maybe contribute to something like global warming, it goes to all the people in the world. So we kind of have two groups. We have the direct group that's affected by air pollution, which is people living within some vicinity of this factory, and then we also have the contribution to global warming that may be there as well. Okay, so now let's find if we leave the market alone, what's the equilibrium going to be? Okay, so what's the equilibrium going to be? Well, again, we're assuming there's no rules, and therefore the private actor doesn't worry about this pollution aspect, or at least is not going to let it affect their decision. They only care about their own personal profits. So that means the firms will sell up until the point where the price for the last one equals to their marginal cost. So they'll sell up to here. So this is the market equilibrium. So this is our market equilibrium. This is the free market. And what we're going to show is so that's where the market would choose up until the point where the private marginal cost, okay, is equal to the private marginal benefit, is equal to the willingness to pay. Now what we're going to show right now is that is not efficient. And so how is it not efficient? Let me see what color. I'll pick green for the shading. Well, at that point, the marginal benefit of that product is here. but the marginal cost of the product, once you consider the external effect, when we only consider the private, they are equal. But once we consider the external effect, we have this gap here. So the marginal cost is up here, but the marginal benefit is down here. So it's inefficient because it's costing more than it's worth. Okay, it's costing more than it's worth to the customers once you consider the damage from the pollution. And then the same thing here, the marginal cost of this unit is here and the marginal benefit is down here, so we have a loss here. And same thing here, and same thing here down to this point. So this triangle here represents our deadweight loss. And so actually the efficient quantity, and I'll write some of this down in just a second, the efficient quantity would have been here. So this is the efficient quantity. This is the efficient equilibrium. The efficient equilibrium is here. This is the efficient equilibrium. But the market won't choose here because the market is not considering this effect on the third parties. Okay. So basically, we're producing too much, right? So our deadweight loss. So this is the efficient equilibrium. We have social marginal cost equal to marginal benefit. Remember, there's no in this case, there's no externality on the demand side. So now our social marginal cost equal to marginal benefit, so therefore it's efficient, right? We're not producing any units where the cost of them is greater than the benefit of them. So our deadweight loss is caused by producing units where marginal cost, where the social marginal cost is greater than the marginal benefit. It means it's not worth it. Those units are not worth it. The marginal benefit of them is not enough to be up there. Okay. Now notice something. There's still an externality going on even at the efficient one, but the externality is less. Okay, the externality is less. So we're still polluting. Even at the efficient one, we're still polluting. In fact, I'll shade it. I'll erase it in just a second, but I'll shade it. At the efficient one, this is still pollution, right? But we're polluting less, and we're not polluting when it's not worth it. Okay, so no economist would say that we should reduce our pollution down to zero or something like that, because it would be impossible to do that without stopping pretty much all human activity. Okay, so no economist is really would say that, but what they would say is that the pollution we do should be efficient. Okay, so if we're going to do pollution, the thing we're getting out of it should be valuable, right? It should be something that people really want, and that's basically how economists will view pollution. Okay, so try to understand this graph. I'm going to post another video from somebody else that explains it as well because this topic's a little tricky. Let me summarize this in words real quick, and then we'll go on to the solution. So basically, the idea is the unregulated market overproduces with a negative externality. That's the basic idea. It produces units that are not worth it. So we overproduce by this amount, Q star M minus Q star E, right? That's how much we overproduce. So the common sense reason why this happens is we're overproducing because the producer is not required to take into account the damage they're doing. So it's like they're getting with a negative externality, the way economists would look at it is the producer is getting something for free, right? There's this negative effect of their production, which has a cost to the society, and the producer is getting it for free. They're able to offload it onto the society without paying for the damage that they're doing. Okay, and so in this case, since the producer is not considering all of their costs, they overproduce compared to what would be efficient if we consider it at the level of the whole society. So in the next video, we'll come back and talk about one of the common solutions for this problem.